air mobility. I call here Giancarlo Ferrara, R&D Work Program Coordinator of Eurocontrol. Prego.
Thank you so much. Nice afternoon to everyone. As I was introduced, I'm here just to give you a snapshot of on the innovative air mobility, on the so-called innovative air mobility. So I prepared just a few slides. I know that it's late and it's just after lunch, so I hope that you will not fall asleep. But I will try to be short because we are already having some delays accumulated. So in any case, the snapshot is mainly to give you what do we mean by innovation and mobility, also to give you some of the elements that are already going to be addressed by the research and innovation in Europe, and also at the end to see what are the challenges that we have in front of us for the way forward to move to the market uptake. So this will be more or less the content. Next slide, please. I don't know how to move on. Do you know? Ah, okay. Let's see. No, it's not working, I guess. Okay. So just a few words again. Sorry for the too much text, but since most probably someone will get the presentations also as reference material, I was adding a bit of additional elements. The high-level definition of the innovative air mobility is deriving from the new, let's say, quite new definitions that were provided by European Commission and EASA on the subject. So they were starting from the so-called innovative aerial services that were including some other subclusters in terms of areas of operations, and not focusing on the aerial operations that are the more standard one, let's say. They were then identifying this innovative air mobility that is subdivided in other groups of activity. Of course, the most challenging part is referring to the urban air mobility. So very often you will see that I was, let's say, coupling the innovative air mobility element with urban air mobility, because of course this is the most challenging scenario we have. So what I can say, apart that, to not bother you so much, that the innovative air mobility for sure is referring to some new type of aircraft that were enabled by the new technologies that we were getting on the market, and also by the electrification, the hybrid engines, and so on. So this is opening a lot of options for us, and there were some solutions that were proposed. Of course, some of them are quite challenging, some of them are still under development, but there are opportunities that we can catch. Along with that, of course, we have to consider that to have this new type of aircraft integrated into the airspace, we need also to address new operational procedures, let's say, and new techniques, and also to manage the airspace accordingly. So this is more or less the high-level view. What I can say more, of course, it's when we're talking about urban air mobility, but also about innovation air mobility, we are not only referring to cargo operations, but we are also referring to the possibility of moving people, so passengers. And this is opening a new scenario also for the smart mobility, as well as to address some of the issues that we are facing in the urban environment, that, as I said, is the most challenging one. Of course, what is in practice the urban air mobility? So in general terms, from an high-level perspective, we could say that there is nothing new, because at the end, today we have already some helicopter services that are available, of course, are quite expensive, of course, are quite noisy as well, and could not go everywhere. So, but more or less, it's the same type of operations that we are having currently in place, made by helicopters, could be made by the urban air mobility or the innovation air mobility type of aircraft. So on the other side, what is new is that, as I said, we have a completely different type of engines, completely different technologies that can be used. So again, we are having some potentialities that we could exploit through this type of new and innovative air mobility. The areas of operations of these, the target area operations, of course, are mainly referring to the city center, because, as I said, is the most challenging environment, but also to the suburban area and to rural areas as well. But what is, again, something that is constraining a bit is also the access to the airport infrastructure, where we have a close combination and close, let's say, interaction between the manned aviation and unmanned aviation that is opening potentially a Pandora box. In terms of types of operations, as I mentioned, we can have different types of operations as well. So shuttle, cargo, last mile delivery that was mentioned before, air taxi that is probably the most known in terms of, especially on the newspapers, but also emergency services is something that is also well perceived by the, let's say, by the people and by the citizens, so could be easily accepted. But at the end, what we are trying to put in place is a process that is pointing not only to have an accommodation of this type of operations, but to have a complete integration into the current airspace. Of course, as I said, we need to identify and to validate some solutions from a technical perspective, from an operational perspective, but most probably also from a regulatory perspective and from a standardization perspective. Nothing more. I would like to say that we can move forward to not, again, to give you too much information. Just a few words about the expectations. As you know, there are several potential benefits coming up from this type of implementation. Of course, should be a bit more sustainable, hopefully, and also will have less impact on the population since there will be less noise and so on, even pollution. But so far, there are let's say, investment already done on the subject that are pointing to have something implemented in the next 2 or 4 years. Of course, in some cases, it's a bit visionary as a deployment activity, but you know, when you accept a challenge, could be also positive because some pressure could be kept and could be something that will help to get some achievements in short time. For the market forecast, of course, there are several market forecasts that all the times are completely changing over the years. But of course, what we can say is that so far, the forecasts are quite good for this type of technology and services, but is mainly pointing to 2030, 2035 in terms of real market opportunities that could be catched. Again, it's not only for people, as I said, could be also for cargo operations. What is the main target for the initial operations is the most crowded area that is also, by the way, the most complex one, that is the urban environment. Just few elements on these new entrants, what are the requirements they have on their side. So what we can say is that mainly they are generally so far electric vehicles that are proposed and are under development. They have vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. This is generally what is the most relevant solutions that we have on the market. And the altitude of operations is quite close to the general aviation type of operations. You know, it's between ground and 6,000 feet, even less of 6,000 feet, but is insisting on an airspace that could be also already crowded. Depends on the specific class of airspace that we have. There will be, for sure, a need to have new airspace management operations in place and constructs, but we need also to have new operational procedures to interface this new type of operators with the manned aviation. And of course, there are also some, a level of digitalization that is quite high. There will be a level of automation as well that could have an impact as well. So all these elements should be taken into consideration. And also we have to consider that it's not something that will happen overnight. There should be a stepwise approach that should be implemented, a roadmap that will first start with some basic services and operations and then move to more integrated operations. Generally, in the domain, we are saying that first we are looking for accommodation. That means, in a certain sense, segregation, and then through corridors and so on, and then we could move to the complete integration. But for that, as I said, there are still solutions that should be defined and blessed by the appropriate authorities. There are also other elements, probably that are not relevant for you, but there are some infrastructural elements that should be considered. Not a minor one, I have to say, in terms of cost, in terms of accommodation also on the ground, in terms of integration, and also in terms of energy availability and so on. That is, seems to be minor, but it's not minor at all, as you can imagine. So it's quite close to the same elements we have for the automotive currently, while we are transitioning from the classical engine to the electricity and to the new type of engines available on the cars as well. What I can say for the for the integration, I said that it's important then to have and to target to have something that is completely integrated. For doing that, we need to have use-based operations, so very low-level type of operations that is mainly managed and is expected to be managed by use-based services, fully integrated with the air traffic management operation. So it should be a sort of seamless environment, as it was in the slide I was showing you previously. So it should be considered, in principle, as a sort of single airspace, but should be properly managed and addressed by the various service providers in a proper way that should be transparent to the users. It's something that is quite challenging, also considering that generally at very low level, where the urban air mobility is expected to fly a lot, we have other operators that have also some priorities, like general aviation, as we said, helicopter service, emergency service, law enforcement agency flights, and so on. So all these aspects are not minor aspects, represent a challenge, as I was saying before. I don't want to say so much more. There are other elements that you can find in the slide. Since we have not so much time, I will skip all the rest, and I will say that in the meantime, we were starting to approach the development of the so-called integrated concept of operations. We were already having several projects. Eurocontrol was generally coordinating this type of project at European level. We were building a first version of the use-based ConOps that was mainly focusing on the small US. Then we were moving to the integration of these new entrants, the urban air mobility aircraft, into the use space, so with respect to the small US. But now, it's time also to see how we can integrate, so we are starting to propose something that is looking at the full integration of urban air mobility with respect to the manned aviation as well, so close to the airports and so on. So it is linked with vertiports operation, again, a quite complex exercise, but the main objective is to ensure a proper interface between the current air traffic management operations and the new type of operations that we would like to put in place. And this is the other challenge. Of course, some, let's say, reference structures were already defined in the use-based ConOps that was recently published, by the way. Vadim knows very well because he was involved with us on that. It's a huge document. It's almost 1,000 pages, so it's quite complex to read, most probably, but we are preparing an executive summary. So 20, 25 pages, at least to provide a high-level picture. Next step will be, most probably, this is the CESAR plan, is to prepare a new edition that is called the ConOps Edition 5, that will look at integration with air traffic management. And we are already working on this idea. Let's see what will happen, and if we will get the blessing from the European Commission for that. But anyway, some class of airspace were already defined with respect to the standard airspace structure that we have in place, and is also addressing the current small US operations. Some new operations related to the advanced air mobility was also defined, but again, it's not the place to describe all that, but just to give you a sort of snapshot of what we are proposing for that to solve and to address these issues. So what I can say for something was happening, I don't know. Okay, thank you. Yeah, for managing all these, let's say the idea is to have, as you know, we were discussing in the previous days as well, in the previous sessions, we need to develop some use-based services that is a sort of air traffic management system for the, let's say, very low-level operations. And this was already achieved through several CESAR-funded projects in the past in terms of definition. So there is a structure in terms of services that is already available and is also in the ConOps I was mentioning before. But there are also projects now that are moving from the innovation, from the research, to the deployment. You know that some of the flight trials we are conducting here in Bari are also referring to this You Welcome project. And You Welcome is not anymore a research and innovation project, is in the framework considered as a sort of research and innovation project, but is funded by CINEA, that is the agency of the European Commission that is funding the development of bridge, railways, and so on. So the target is to have high TRL and potentially to have the systems and the services developed by 2026 to be ready to allow and enable small US operations. But in general, then, we have to move and to define the most advanced services that are referring to the U3 and U4, and this is something that will happen in the next pipeline of the research and innovation activities. To say that, so there are several activities that are going on this specific subject. Of course, most of them are pointing, I was trying to prepare for you a survey of what are the most relevant elements. Is first to address the definition and the development of the U-Space Advanced Services. As I said, to see how we can fully integrate the urban air mobility in terms of accommodation and integration into the current airspace, and to have a full U-Space and ATM interoperability. These are the objectives that we have so far in terms of challenge for the way forward. And then I'm coming to an end, just to say that there are some solutions that have been already identified. Are not solutions, let's say, are challenges that we have in front of us. I don't want to mention all these because it could be quite boring, but you see, these are the main elements that we need to address to get the picture that I was showing you at the beginning in place. And so this is the elements that are related to the U-Space services, and these are the elements that are related to the urban mobility integration into the airspace. Of course, it's full of challenging elements, as you can see, but again, I don't want to bother you, since I think you will get the presentation, you will have a look, and, but these are the main subject of the next research and innovation activities. Having said that, I would like to say thank you to all of you. I hope I was providing a high-level overview of the subject, and in case you need, you have my coordinates. You can just drop some emails, and I'll try to answer to you